All right, everybody. So as we talked about last week, your first of your 3 essays is going to be a descriptive essay. So you should be somewhat prepared for this given our discussion on descriptive writing last week and your first assignment, which was the descriptive paragraph. So in terms of the descriptive essay and what you need to be looking for, first off, you can kind of think of it in these sorts of terms. Think about what it is that you're going to write about. And like we talked about, it can be a person, a place, an event, a vacation spot, anything that you can think of that, again, as we talked about last week, lends itself to description. So, I think I used the example of a computer monitor. You'd have a hard time getting a couple of pages or 2 or 3 pages out of describing a computer monitor. It's a computer monitor. There's not a whole lot you can really do with that, right? You have to be pretty creative. So you want to make sure, first of all, that your topic is something that makes sense to actually explore in this kind of assignment within these kind of boundaries, I guess. Given that you need 2 to 3 pages out of this. So a good way of doing that is just to kind of visualize what it is that you're going to write about and think about how would you describe it. For example, how would you describe this picture? There's a lot happening here, even though it just looks like a picture of a landscape, right? There are several, kind of levels of color. There are specific elements of landscape in this picture that wouldn't appear in other pictures of other types of landscapes, right? So you'd want to look for the things in this picture that you would want to describe to someone that make it unique, right? So you've got mountains here, you've got the way the light falls on the trees and on the valleys, the way the trees and valleys kind of sit with the mountains, right? So there are all these elements to this picture that someone who had never seen this kind of landscape before would need to know, right? So you want to start breaking things down to that kind of elemental level to think about the way that you'll talk about and present the details of whatever it is that you're going to describe, right? So with that then, what makes a strong descriptive essay? Well, the same things that make a descriptive paragraph, like we talked about last week. It's just going to be an essay format. So first off, you want a very specific topic, right? If you decide to write about something very broad, you're going to have a harder time kind of reining it in. And we talked a little bit about that, and we'll continue talking about that over the course of the next few weeks. The process of either broadening a topic because it's too narrow to really explore in any kind of detail, or narrowing a topic because it's just too broad to take on, within a 3, 4, or 5 page paper. That process is really important to everything that we're going to do in here. So in terms of selecting a topic for your essay, you want to make sure that it's specific enough for you to be able to describe, but not so broad that you can't possibly get all of the potential descriptions in there, right? You want to make sure that you've got descriptive language, obviously. That's the major element of this essay. And along with that, thoughtful word choice, right? If I say that something, the sunset is amazing, does that actually tell you what the sunset looks like? Not really, right? I mean, you get a sense of what I mean, and you get a sense that there's something impressive about it, right? But you don't really get a sense of what it actually is. But if I tell you what color the sunset is, and what the temperature felt like while the sun was setting, and all that sort of a thing, well, that's a little bit different. Those are details then that kind of paint the picture, right? So word choice really is a big part of that, considering what your wording is. And then finally, unique details. What is it about this thing that you're describing, or the place or person or whatever, that make it unique, right? And what is it about this that sets it apart from either things like it or just everything else in general? How is that landscape photo in the last slide different from a photo? So you want to think about what details make whatever it is that you're describing unique. In addition to that, you want to consider your thesis, obviously, and your thesis is a big part of any essay, as we talked about last week, and as I will continue to pound into your heads over the course of this term. You'll probably get very tired of hearing me talk about thesis statements, but they are that important. So I get asked this question pretty frequently in this course. How do I, all I'm doing is describing something. How do I write a thesis for that? I'm not arguing about something or anything like that. Well, it's approached the same way for a descriptive essay as it is for any other type of essay, okay? So you're still providing just a statement that defines your topic, right? The goal of a thesis is to guide your reader through the essay before they actually read the essay, right? It's a map. It's a signpost, right? So if your topic was, a vacation to the Bahamas, your thesis could be, my summer vacation to the Bahamas was the most relaxing vacation I've ever had, or my vacation to the Bahamas was very strange because it rained the whole time, or whatever it is that sets the direction and sets the tone for your paper as a whole is what you want. And a lot of times people will say, well, is that really, okay, well, I have that. I mean, is that really a thesis? Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes, it is. As long as you have a statement in your introduction that sets the reader up for what he or she is going to encounter in the paper, you have a thesis statement. It's just not presenting an argument or something like that the way it would in other kinds of essays, right? So I think the thesis statement in the descriptive essay is a little bit more subtle, but it is there and it is necessary for guiding the reader through the paper as a whole. And finally, then, what supporting details should I use? And this is another question that that people always say. Well, if I'm talking about this, what should I say? Well, only you can really answer that question, because if I'm not familiar with your topic, it's going to be tough for me to tell you what specific details you should use, right? But what you want to kind of use as the general rule is you want to put details in the paper in a way that is relevant to what you're describing. Right? So with these two examples, we've got the one in green, which is a good example, and the one in red, which is bad. So in the green example, my favorite shirt is a dark purple button-down that almost never wrinkles. The material is cotton soft. I'm sorry to report as a side note that shirt has since been destroyed by one of my dogs, but we won't go into great detail about that. But with this thesis, with the supporting details here, this is good because these details apply specifically to what? My shirt, right? So if I'm talking about my shirt, if I'm just describing that shirt, then these details are directly related to that description, right? So whether or not I choose to use these details in the end is a different story. But are these details relevant to my topic? If my topic is my purple shirt, yeah, right? They're relevant to what I'm talking about. Whereas with the red example, my favorite shirt is a dark purple button-down that almost never wrinkles. So we've got that much still. But then it says, my red shirts wrinkle every time I wash them, and my dryer's thermostat is broken. Well, the first thing your reader's going to say is, what do the red shirts and the broken dryer have to do with your shirt, right? With your purple shirt? Are they directly related somehow? Because if they're not directly related somehow, even though they're related to the idea of laundry, I guess, and shirts and material and however you want to, put everything in the same basket, those details really aren't relevant to my discussion of my purple shirt. Right? So you want to be sure that whatever supporting details you choose to use, they're used in a way that's relevant and that the details themselves are relevant to what it is that you're describing. And I hear this all the time from people. I have a little phantom bracket up there in the top left corner I'm going to have to delete out of there. That's not there for a reason. Don't read any hidden meaning into that little ghost bracket. I hear this at least once a term. And anytime there's a writing assignment involved, I have someone who approaches me in some capacity and says, I don't have anything to write about. I don't know what to write about. I can't think of a topic. I don't do anything interesting. My life isn't interesting. I don't have anything to offer, essentially. Not true. That is just not true. It's one of the biggest misconceptions that I encounter as an English instructor is this assumption that people, because they're not, rock stars or astronauts or something, that they don't have anything interesting to talk about. And that's just not the case. I can tell you that every person I've ever taught has had some sort of unique experience or something that's either happened to them or that they've done or that they plan to do or that they're involved with, that would be interesting to other people. Very interesting in most cases. And the vast majority of times I hear this complaint, what I end up getting in the end after a little brainstorming is something that's really interesting and something really unique about that person. So I can assure you that, and to that end, think about what it is that you want to show your reader. What is it that gets you excited? What is it that interests you? What's something profound that happened to you in your life? Is it about a place? Was it something in school? Was it something to do with work or a career? Is it something in reading about? I've read papers about people's hobbies from, fishing to skiing to collecting comic books to, military history, studying history and things like that. I've read so many different topics when it comes to this assignment that I wouldn't even be able to sit here and list them all. So you just want to kind of consider, what is it that interests you? What is it that you want to write about, right? And that's one of the reasons I'm not assigning you a topic. I want to know what you're interested in. So think about what do you want to show a reader? What do you want to tell them about? If you're going into this assuming that a reader knows nothing about this particular topic, what is it that you want to show them? What is it that you want to tell them? So hopefully that's enough to kind of get your wheels turning in terms of the descriptive essay. Now, next week, the descriptive essay rough draft is due. And I have to stress, it is a rough draft. So don't feel like you have to come to class with a polished final draft by any means. We're going to have a peer review session, so we're going to review each other's work, and we're going to kind of walk through the process of what you need to do when you draft. What is drafting? Why do we have a rough draft? And then a process of kind of assessing that before we write a final draft, right? What's the point of drafting? So we're going to look at that in a lot of depth next week. So as long as you have a complete draft of something, right? As long as you've got some version of what your paper is going to be, you'll be in good shape. And your rough draft grade will just play into your final grade for this paper. So don't stress out over the grade aspect of it. This is more to kind of get you used to the process of drafting an entire essay. And then next week we'll pick it up from there and kind of look at the next steps.